Hello, I'm Rob Higuerita, and I'm an Enterprise Support Lead at AWS, and I'm based out of Austin, Texas. Thank you for joining us, and welcome to AWS Knowledge Center Live, where we share best practices and troubleshooting tips from AWS Support. Joining me today is Deepti Madamachi and Michael Beck from AWS. Can you give us a quick introduction, Deepti and Michael?
Sure, Rob. Hi, everyone. My name is Deepti Madhamanchi. I'm a senior technical account manager based out of San Francisco, and I'm with AWS for about 3 years, 9 months now.
Hi, I am Michael Beck. I'm an enterprise support manager out of San Francisco, California. I've been with AWS for almost 3 years, and I originally started out as a TAM.
Great, thanks, Deepti and Michael. Appreciate that. Today, we'll be discussing how you can get the most out of enterprise support with AWS organizations and AWS Health. Before we get into the details of everything, a quick note to the attendees online. Feel free to use the chat window on the right-hand side of your screen to share your thoughts and ask your questions throughout the episode today. We really look forward to hearing from you and interacting. Deepti, can you walk us through what we're going to be talking about today?
Sure. Thanks for kicking us off, Rob. The agenda flows like this. Today, we're going to talk about various account best practices that can help large enterprises. We're also going to dive into how enterprises can leverage AWS Health using organizational view feature, which will be followed by a demo. Next, we want to talk about various facets of support and how companies can benefit from them. And finally, we will highlight the role of technical account manager, an acronym popularly pronounced as TAM.
All right. Thank you, Deepti. So this is the overview of enterprise support and a bunch of entitlements, which we will be talking about throughout this episode. I'm not going to touch on each and every one here because we are going to dive into more detail as we go. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to start off with talking about a number of programs that the TAM does with a customer when they are new onto enterprise support and as they get going. So we start off with an onboarding and a kickoff to introduce them to all of the various entitlements that they are now receiving as part of enterprise support. And this will include setting up regular meetings, which we call cadence calls, which could be weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, whatever frequency works best for you, and covering the topics that you find most important and relevant. They'll also set up management business reviews where we might be going over things like cost analysis, goals, and project deliveries with your senior leadership, like maybe your SVPs or C-suite. Whether you're born in the cloud or you're migrating to it, continuous education is really important. So the TAM is able to bring a variety of items such as immersion days, deep dives, workshops, and game days, which are gamified types of learning where we can take individuals which have 0 or maybe 100 level knowledge in a topic and bring them up and teach them about various services and features in a fun, competitive, gamified environment within your organization. We also have a number of proactive activities and efforts which we do, which includes workload diagnostics reviews, as well as operational workshops and deep dives. And these cover a variety of situations such as database migrations or services such as Amazon Redshift or Amazon Elasticache. Lastly, I'll touch a little bit here about architecture guidance. And this is where typically the essays on the front end or solutions architect on the front of a project or initiative, and then followed by TAMs during implementation and then post-implementation management support. But those are all kind of fungible. Your account team with your account manager, your solutions architect, and your technical account manager, they all work together to deliver whatever needs to be done. So those roles aren't really exactly static. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is the types of support you get for your mission critical activities. So the first thing that it does in enterprise support is it unlocks that top level case severity for critical business down, and that is a 15-minute response time. The TAM will also set up office hours. So this might be an hour or two every week where they either virtually or in person set up office, and people can just stop by, anybody from your organization, and ask questions about services or features or integration or best practices or really kind of anything AWS. The TAM will also do operations reviews, like I said, in partnership with Solution Architect. I'm going to touch on well architected a little bit later in the show. Something I think is really valuable that I don't know a lot of customers really are aware of is our third-party support. We have a lot of really great subject matter experts in our support engineers, and they can help you not just with AWS services and features, but also operating systems for Linux and Microsoft, web servers like Nginx, as well as database servers. So MySQL, PostgreSQL, Microsoft SQL Server, Oracle. They can help you with SSH and SFTP, all of these different things. And then if there's something that we don't have a subject matter in, or maybe it's outside of our best effort, we'll still do the best that we can and partner with any third-party organizations that maybe you have support agreements with. And the last thing I'll touch on quickly is incident management. TAM really kind of serves as an escalation manager. They will get paged for any business down or critical severity cases. They'll check in with the support engineer, they'll check in with you, and if needed, they'll bring in subject matter experts and even service teams if necessary to help bring resolution to your case as quickly as possible. So now let's talk about ways that the TAM can help you drive innovation within your organization. 90% of the services and features which we have are driven by feedback from our customers. And our service teams love to get that voice of the customer directly from you. So what the TAM can do is set up a session where maybe there's a service or feature that you're using and you'd like to get some expert guidance and kind of more customized for you. You can talk about your workload and your use case, and then they can take that back as maybe a feature request for a service or feature we don't have, or some way that it could possibly be improved. And then lastly, as the TAM integrates into your organization, they become very closely aware of how you work and can offer up private previews and beta programs for services and features that either exist or up and coming that they think would really benefit you. All right, so please be sure to be posting questions into the channel, and we will be answering some of those shortly. But I do want to talk about some of the advanced technology we have, which helps you monitor, secure, and optimize your AWS infrastructure. So I'm going to start with Trusted Advisor. There's 115 automated checks which Trusted Advisor does for enterprise support customers. And it covers all sorts of things from cost optimization to security, fault tolerance, performance improvement, and service quotas. We also have the Support API, which allows you to interact with the AWS support experience, the same that you get through the management console, but in an automated fashion if you want to, say, integrate it with either some home-brewed tools or third-party applications and support. So these last two on Health API and the Personal Health Dashboard, I'm not going to dive really into very deeply because Deepti is going to do that in our demo coming up. But I would like to go ahead and bring Rob back in to see if he's got any questions which we could answer.
Hey, thanks, Michael, and thanks for everything. Just for the audience, I have posted some links into the chat as well. But Michael, just a quick question here. Can you tell me more about service quotas in general as part of Trusted Advisor?
Oh yeah, I'd love to. So service quotas, or sometimes referred to as limits, are what are in place with your AWS accounts to help limit and control costs, as well as to prevent accidental use of maybe too many services or features which you don't want to use. Limit them to regions or different things like that. As part of Trusted Advisor, there are 50 different checks against service quotas that we do. So you'll be notified when you reach 80% of the limit for any particular service. And we're always adding more and more. So Rob, thank you for that question. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Deepthi to talk about AWS Health and the Personal Health Dashboard.
Well, thanks, Michael, for the quick overview of the tools. And I'm going to focus a bit more on the last two services that Michael just touched upon, which is the Health API and the Personal Health Dashboard. The flow of this few slides would be to introduce you to the combination of these two services, which is collectively known as AWS Health, and also to show you how to leverage AWS organizations with AWS Health. For those of you who are new to AWS organizations, I'll also walk you through a quick refresher of the service, followed by a demo of an application called as AWS Health Aware. AWS Health Aware leverages all the services that I just listed and lets you integrate them with your preferred communication platforms. So to begin with, AWS Personal Health Dashboard is a console that is available for all the AWS customers. AWS Health APIs are what are powering the dashboard, and Health API is an authoritative source to feed health information from all the services back to the console. And Health API is available for customers who either have a business support or an enterprise support plan. Well, so the main purpose of Health API and the Personal Health Dashboard is visibility into issues. This is good. But surfacing these remediation guidance so you can self-help and get out of the problem is also equally important. So along with all of this information about the event, Health API or PhD events also will give you deep links to knowledge base articles and AWS documentation. Great. So we have got all the information required. But what do really organizations want? Getting these information over to the right set of parties in a timely manner is really crucial, especially if you're running business critical applications on AWS. So for this, Health API integrates with CloudWatch events. Customers can set up automated actions and custom rules to direct specific events to specific teams. Typically, in a large organization, you would probably want to send all the security notifications to a centralized security team. Similarly, all the storage notifications to a storage team. So these are some of the capabilities of integrating health with organizations and the power of Health API and the Personal Health Dashboard. So we are going to go into some more details, but to summarize the slide, AWS Health, which is a combination of Health API and Personal Health Dashboard, provides visibility into your resources, your accounts, and your services. I stress your because it's a very personalized service. It also provides proactive alerts and remediation guidance. So why is this important for enterprises? Obviously, enterprises, at the speed at which they're doing the business, they need increased transparency, and they also want faster time to resolution. They also use a lot of third-party event management tools. So they want this health to integrate with all such different tools that they're using already. And to go a notch further, you can also integrate these automated actions with AWS Lambda and probably design your own self-healing systems. As I promised earlier, I'm going to give you a quick overview of AWS organizations. This is a a huge capability that we have released, but I really want to bring your attention of using the organizations and leveraging it in context of AWS Health. So on the slide, you can see that I've listed all features mode. So in short, there are two modes in which AWS organizations operates. One is the consolidated billing mode, and the other one is the all features mode. And in my demo and going forward, I'm going to leverage the all features mode. So all features mode gives you all the capability what AWS organizations has to offer. Consolidated billing mode will only provide all the member accounts in your organization to roll up into one single payment methodology. So going back to why enterprises need AWS organizations. So as a lot of workloads are moving onto the clouds, organically you can see organizations adding more and more AWS accounts. So centrally managing them and governing them becomes a very top priority. So AWS organizations solves just this problem because it offers policy-based management, and it offers them at a logical grouping level, which is also known as organizational unit, or OU. So OU is a logical set of accounts, which, for example, let's say if your organization has strict compliance needs such as HIPAA or PCI, all such accounts can be grouped under one single OU, and you can apply the policies that you want on that particular OU, and the rest of the accounts can go into a separate one. Similarly, if you are a organization that is present globally, you might have several production accounts, and you might want to tie all of those into one single governance system. So you might put all the production accounts into one OU, and probably the rest staging and development into others. So that is overall what AWS organizations means. And by using the management account, the one you see on the right-hand side of the root in the diagram, you can organize your logical OUs and apply individual policies. There's a lot of depth, obviously, in the capabilities and features that organizations provide, but I'll bring your attention back to using the service with AWS Health. So AWS Health is a platform where you can get notifications. So the combination of using organizations with Health lets you have all the individual member accounts, roll up notifications up to the management account. So essentially what you get is a single pane of glass view into your entire set of accounts. So my demo will show you as a first step as to how at the click of a button, you can enable this view in a matter of minutes. So the prerequisite is to have AWS organizations in all features mode already. And going over to the next slide. I'm going to talk about an application known as AWS Health Aware. This is an application that is provided to you by AWS. The links will be posted in the chat shortly. But this is an incident management and communication framework, which lets you ingest proactive and real-time alerts from AWS Health. It also lets you direct them to your preferred communication channels. So customers can use this with organizations enabled or not. So in case you are not yet there with organizations, no issues. There is a mode which I'll show you in the demo where you can just select no, and you can still leverage this application. So this solution can get aggregated account level alerts from the impacted accounts over to the management accounts. And alerts can be configured to endpoints such as Slack, Microsoft Teams, Amazon Chime, or even as an email domain. There is also an option to integrate the solution with Amazon Event Bridge, and it lets customer integrate with more than 35 SaaS partners such as New Relic, Datadog, and PagerDuty. So the source of the application will be dropped into the chat. There's a block that you can visit, and it goes through step-to-step instructions as to how to get started with this application. So now talking about the prerequisites, You need to have endpoints, at least one endpoint configured in the form of either a webhook URL or an email or Amazon Event Bridge. And those webhook URLs can be a combination of Slack, Microsoft Teams, Amazon Chime, or just one of them. Moving over to the architecture there, this is a diagram that describes what happens under the hood once you install this application. It neatly shows numbers 1 through 5, explaining the flow. And the demo obviously shows this in a moment in action. But you're just going to download the sample zip file from the GitHub and install that. And under the hood, what happens is that there's a webhook that is created already by you. And once you install the CloudFormation template, the Lambda functions get installed. They also have a DynamoDB table where the events get populated. And if you look at the bottom side of the diagram, you have different member accounts, all of events which get rolled over to the main management account. And once the events start rolling, DynamoDB will be the source of truth. Lambda will query the DynamoDB and relay those over to your preferred communication channels that you've set. So that brings to the end of the explanation of what this application does. And the power of the combination of organizations and health. I want to bring Rob back in to see if there are any questions so far before I jump into the demo.
Thanks, DP. Yeah, we've got a couple questions from our audience today here. So from YOL 1982, they have a question about every time they create an account through organizations, they need to activate them by resetting the new account password and follow an activation procedure. And they're kind of curious if they're able to skip this somehow.
So there is a managed process of adding bulk accounts into organizations. And if you have either a business or enterprise support plan, you can work with your technical account manager and get this started.
Okay, thanks, DP. Do have one other question, and it's in regards to organizations. How do you secure the consolidated billing management account, or what's our recommendation for doing so?
Securing the consolidated billing, what does securing mean here?
I can go back and ask for some clarification on that from the chat, but I think just in general, providing access, limited, probably using like identity and access management roles or something, but I'll get some clarification as well.
Sure, thanks. And they can also post it on forums if they have follow-up questions on that.
Yeah, I mean, in general, right, if we're talking about securing AWS resources, I'm always going to default to identity and access management, AWS IAM, for using policies and roles. I would look into that. Definitely, you can look at separating out those by who you want and what you want them to do. Rob's going to follow up with you. We'll look about also getting a link to that documentation later on as well. But yeah, thank you very much. So Deepti, you've got a demo for us?
Yes, I've got a demo for you guys. All right, so let me start the demo. Everyone able to see this?
Yeah.
Cool. All right, so here I am in my management account. Let's see if this is moving. Give me 1 second. Well, here I'm in the management account, and I'm going to search for the personal health dashboard. Currently, I am set up with AWS organizations, but I'm not set up with the organizational view. So I'm going to talk about how to set that up. The left-hand side in the organizational view, click configuration. It gives you a status of whether you're set up with organizations. In my case, as I mentioned, yes, I am already set up. I do have some member accounts attached to this organization. And I have a button to enable organizational view. You go ahead and click that. And based on the number of accounts in your organization, this might take anywhere between 3 minutes to 4 minutes. The more the number of accounts, the longer it takes. And there you go. Mine has just one. It immediately popped a success message to me, which is great. I'm going to then go over to the dashboard to see if I have any new notifications. In fact, no, I don't have anything. So a good place to start is to look at the event log. In the event log, I see some information or the notifications from the previous few days. You can see some issues, some notifications, and a lot of these are closed already, except for a security notification, which is still open. And going back to the configuration, everything is set up, all looks good. Now I'm going to set up a chat integration. For this, as I mentioned, we will have to create a webhook URL. So I have a Slack workspace, which I created already, which I'm going to demo in a second. But when I click for the chat integration, this is the blog post that Rob will paste in the chat in a bit. So this is my Slack workspace where I'm going to search for incoming webhooks. That is the application that I want to install, which lets me create a webhook URL for Slack. So when I search for that, I do have an application. I'll click on that and I'll wait for it to populate. I'll hit the button Add to Slack. So what this essentially does is it adds this application to a preferred channel. So in here, I created AWS Infrastructure Alerts channel, and I click in Incoming Webhooks Integration. Once I do that, I'll be presented with a webhook URL. And when I scroll this, I do have some more customizations that I can fill, like the name of this integration and a few other things. So I'll copy this webhook URL into my notepad because I need this as an input for my CloudFormation template that I'm going to install later. Webhook URL, save. All right, now scrolling down, I can give this a name probably. Yeah, a descriptive label. So I'm just gonna type in this channel is to receive notifications, personal health notifications of my fictitious ABC org for my AWS infrastructure. All right, I'll save these settings and move on to the next steps. So here is the Slack workspace I have, and I'm in this channel called as AWS Infrastructure Alerts. I'm looking at this channel. So at this stage, I just created the webhook URL. So everything is integrated, it looks good, but I don't have notifications yet. And for that, let's move on to the next steps. So time to install the CloudFormation template. I'm going to create a new stack with new resources, and I'll give the template file. So if you remember the link to the blog post, there is another link additionally, which leads you to the GitHub repo, where you can download the AHA version 1.8.zip. And I selected that and I installed that stack. It gives me various parameters that I can configure. And I'm going to show that in a bit, but I'll give you a stack name called as AHA deployment. I'll scroll down. So here is where I select yes. If you remember, there are two modes where you can configure either enable this with AWS organizations or without AWS organizations. And as I told you in the demo, I'm going to use AWS organizations because I want to roll all the member account notifications over to my management account. And then the second type of customization. So if you look at the type of notifications that you typically receive, they are broadly categorized into issues, account notifications, scheduled changes, and investigation. Some of the companies might just be interested in issues and want to configure just that. So it's up to you what you want to consume. For the demo purposes, I consumed all the 4 types of notifications. And I'm going to give the package information. So the code that I copied, I already created an S3 bucket. And I give the name of the S3 bucket here and the name of the package. This is important because as new versions of the code gets released, it's important to update your code in here in your S3 bucket. So CloudFormation always gets the latest changes. And since I already created a webhook URL, which is my Slack channel integration, I'm going to give that information in here. Obviously, I don't have any email set up. I'll move on to the subject. AWS Health alert looks good to me. An important configuration that I want to mention is an event search back. So how do you know this works right off the bat? Let's say if you're having a new account or your enabled organizations brand new, you would probably not have notifications immediately. So but probably you want to go ahead and install this application and you still want to test it's working or not. So if you remember on the left-hand side, when I showed you the personal health dashboard, there's an event log. And event log gives you all the past notifications. So event search back, it defaults to last 1 hour. You can configure this to maybe 2 hours or 3 hours, whatever are the needs of your organization. Here, because I want to test this out, I gave 4,800 hours. And if you look at the last parameter there, you can select regions. By default, it takes all regions. But if, let's say, your production resources are all in US East 1 or US Central 1, what you can do is just put those and leave the rest. That way, you're not getting a lot of spam. You're just getting those important notifications that you can't miss. Well, all of these are now configured. I'll hit next. I'll scroll down. I'll hit next again. I'll check one last time if all the parameters look good. I acknowledge and create stack. So this takes anywhere between 3 to 5 minutes. I'll look at this. It's in progress. So I'll go back to my personal health dashboard to see if there's any notification that popped up newly. If not, that's fine too. So no schedule changes, no other notifications, well and good. And I'm in the AWS account event log. Obviously, since I configured 4,800 hours, I should get some of these notifications into my Slack channel once the CloudFormation template finishes installing. All right, I think it might be time for the CloudFormation template to finish installation. I'll just quickly check. Yeah, the AHA deployment is complete. And under the resources, everything looks good. All right, I can already see my Slack populating with alerts. These are all the notifications. And remember, one of the notifications is still ongoing and rest of them were resolved. So you can see the color coding. A lot of them are in green, except for one, which is the still ongoing or still relevant notification that you might want your attention on. Dissecting this a bit, this is what it shows. It shows the accounts, resources impacted, the service that is in question, the region, the event AR, and the start time. The status, obviously, it's open, and that's why it's in red. So this is regarding a event called as AWS FIPS standards endpoints need minimum of TLS 1.2. And this lets your ops teams look at this notification and make sure that they're all ready for this migration. So that brings me to the end of this demo. Over to you, Rob. Are there any questions?
Yeah, so we have a few questions that came in from our audience while you're presenting today. So other than Slack from Mara Doxbat, it's like what's supported other than Slack for the solution?
So we can also integrate notifications into Amazon Chime, Microsoft Teams, and you can also put in your email endpoints. Additionally, you can use Amazon Event Bridge. So Event Bridge is a conduit to 35 different SaaS providers or partners such as PagerDuty, Datadog, and you can, if let's say your organization is using one of these third-party tools, you can easily integrate the solution via Event Bridge into all these third-party tools.
Great, thanks, Deepi. We have just one other one as well from our Doxbat as well. Can you invoke any type of reports through this Slack solution, or does it only send notifications when something happens?
I'm sure that you can look at AWS Lambda, and you can write another Lambda function and probably report it out. But for now, in this demo, it's only going to send notifications. It is out of scope of this particular solution, but I'm sure there'll be ways to do that.
All right, thanks. Appreciate it, Deepi. That's all for right now. Back to y'all.
All right. Thanks, Rob. And thank you, Deepti, for that awesome demo. So now I'm going to talk about some different programs within AWS Support, some for customers on enterprise support and some things that are available to all. So going to talk about infrastructure event management, or IEM, going to talk about the well-architected review, the operations review, and some training. So just like at the top of the episode, I was talking about continuous education and a number of different entitlements that the TAM can bring to you in the terms of like immersion days and deep dives and all of that other stuff. But AWS has a ton of self-driven, free training and education on the AWS certification and training site. Please feel free to go there. There is all sorts of stuff in terms of white papers, architectural best practice, guidance, training, workshops, self-directed labs. There is a ton of stuff there. Now, since we are talking about enterprise support and TAMs, I will mention that those customers do get 500 Quick Lab credits every year. So that's just a little bonus, and thank you for those people on enterprise support. So let's talk about infrastructure event management, or IEM. So let's say you have a big product release coming up. Let's say that you've got a migration, or you have a big sport, you're part of a big sporting event, or maybe there's a big sales day like, I don't know, Amazon Prime Day. If you've got one of these things coming up, then what you can do is you engage your TAM, and they have a complete methodology and a run book that helps them work with you to review your entire application and architecture and your workloads and use cases for this event to make sure that they are in the best state for you to be successful during your event. And this might be things looking at whether you need to maybe expand out into new regions, maybe use CloudFront at the edge, look at third-party SaaS providers and integration points, or even some of the service quotas, which we talked about earlier. Next thing I am going to talk about is well-architected review. While these are typically driven by the solutions architects, there's a lot of different pillars, and one of them, the operations, is typically managed by the TAM. So I'm going to touch on that one later. But that being said, what started off as just a white paper is now the WA tool. It is an entire practice that's been built around it. And this is available free to everybody who's an AWS customer. You can go in, you can perform some self-evaluations and review, get some inspection onto your workloads and your use cases. And then your solutions architect is able to bring all of these together, combine that with the knowledge they have of your environment, with the knowledge they have of AWS best practices, and help you to close gaps and identify risks, and then help you remediate those. So now let's go ahead and talk about the operations pillar or operations review, which is done by your technical account manager. Just like we've got 5 pillars to well architected, within operations, we have 4 of our own pillars where the TAM focuses on preparing, monitoring, operating, and optimizing your cloud-based systems in terms of operational excellence. So they'll take a variety of inputs. One could be the aforementioned IEM, and take all of that data, just like the SA is doing with other parts of well architected, and evaluate your infrastructure, your applications, workloads, and use cases to identify any gaps, risks, and work with you to address and close those. So before I turn it back over to Deepti, Rob, I'd like to bring you in. Do we have any other questions in the channel?
So nothing from the audience right now, but we do have a question. Is there a limit to the number of these entitlements that I can use, like IEMs, well-architected, and operations reviews?
So there is not for AWS Enterprise Support customers. You can do as many IEMs, well-architected, and operations reviews as you so choose. We actually recommend doing well-architected and operations reviews, not just when you're planning and implementing some new workload, but also as you do new releases or deployments to them. At a minimum, you should probably go back and re-review those. I'd say at least once a year. So yeah, no, just we want you to be operationally healthy, secure, and efficient. So no limits on those.
Great, thanks, Michael. I appreciate it. And so I think now over to you, Deepti.
Thank you, Rob and Michael. All right. So to refresh your memory, Michael in the beginning talked about 3 main facets that make up support: people, programs, and tools. In this slide, I'm going to cover categories of AWS experts you can leverage to make your application run optimally on AWS, especially if you have production workloads running on AWS. The first is a technical account manager. I'm going to go into the role of a technical account manager in the last and next slide. So let me talk about the rest of them. Support concierge. Support concierge are a team of enterprise account specialists. And these specialists, they specialize in general account questions, billing questions, or service quota increase questions. So these are some of the requests that you typically file using your AWS Support Center. And it gets routed to one of these specialists or the support concierge. And if you also have some strategic direction, like reducing your AWS bill or looking at some of the credits and probably understanding the bill, you can also work with your TAM, who can also bring in a support concierge to talk with you. They also work on savings plans, RIs, and any other details that you might want to know about. Lastly, there's a broad categorization called subject matter experts, or SMEs. So SMEs are a group of people who are either the cloud support engineers that you work with, or the specialist SAs that you work with, or even the service team members. When I say service team members, these are the core team that develop the service instead of AWS. So finally, the SMEs are the specialists in their own technical domain. So they can help you with technologies that they're specialized in. And you can always request support, and your technical account manager or the solutions architect can arrange maybe proactive discussions. As Michael mentioned in the earlier slides, there are many proactive programs that each of them can help you with. Obviously, the solutions architects, they specialize in well architecting your applications. And specialist solutions architects, they deep dive into one particular domain like networking. They also help you with any third-party integrations you have with AWS. So there's a broad range of personnel that you can leverage for your success on AWS. Finally, I'm going to talk about the role of a technical account manager. Can we move on to the next slide, please? So the last slide about the technical account manager talks about the role. I myself am a technical account manager, and I've been working with customers from various domains like healthcare, high tech, and ad tech. So technical account manager is your designated technical point of contact. And when you just onboard onto enterprise support, the technical account manager helps you plan the first 90 days and help you onboard with the various facets of enterprise support. They also provide advocacy and guidance to help plan and build solutions using the best practices. So like that demo that I showed is something that your TAM can bring up during your cadence calls or office hours and help you better architect things. So TAM also coordinates access to subject matter experts. They assist with case management. They also present insights and recommendations on your AWS spend. They can help you optimize your workloads. And the role of a TAM really helps you proactively keeping your AWS environments healthy. So some of the programs and frameworks that Michael touched upon earlier are the ones they drive. For example, operations review, IEM. So all of these combined help you better architect your applications and workloads on AWS. That brings me to the end of this presentation. Over to you, Rob. Any questions from the audience?
Great, thanks, Deepthi. Yeah, so to go back just a little bit on our infrastructure event management offering, we did have a question from Ray_DB222 that asks, what happens after IEM support? Is there support for scaling down and reducing costs afterwards?
Oh, yeah. So I was talking about the proactive nature and the lead-in on IEM. I did not touch on the after or the wind down. There definitely is post-event support as part of IEM. So you bring up a couple of really good points that we do cover. So if there is a need to scale up or scale out as part of your IEM, definitely that's one of the things that we'll go back and help you evaluate and analyze is when should you look at scaling that back down or scaling that back in. Obviously, we definitely recommend wherever possible to use automation so you can, connect into various CloudWatch events and alarms, and we have a lot of AWS services that support automatic scaling. So obviously we recommend that. But in situations where maybe you perhaps manually pre-scaled some infrastructure in advance of that event, we do talk to you about that, help you scale those back down. And we will do a post-event summary, and we'll review all of the metrics and data that you've gathered and that we've gathered and look at, best, how did everything turn out? Are there any rooms for improvements? Any gaps that maybe we didn't identify in planning? So yeah, thank you, Ray DB222, for that question. Rob, any others?
No, that's it for right now. We do have one question about job opportunities at Amazon, and I'm going to post some links in there in the chat as well on that. But that's it right now.
Oh, I love that question. Obviously, as an enterprise support manager, I'm hiring. We're always hiring. So yeah, thank you. Obviously, I'm going to promote the role of the TAM. but we've got a lot of really great roles throughout AWS and Amazon. Yeah, look into it. Drop those links, Rob.
Absolutely. All right. So if we have any other questions today from the audience, but if there are any other questions that we didn't get answered today, feel free to post your questions on the forums.aws.amazon.com site. And thanks for joining us today for AWS Knowledge Center Live, and happy cloud computing.
Happy cloud computing.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.